forgotten edge of Maple Street, where potholes told old stories and the streetlights flickered like dying fireflies, lived 13-year-old Maya Brooks. She and her grandfather shared a tiny rented unit behind the auto shop, their walls thin, their dreams thinner. Maya's mother had passed when she was a baby, and her father, well, he stopped sending postcards years ago. But Grandpa Joe, with his faded flannel shirts and radio voice, always said, "A broken beginning doesn't mean a broken life." Every morning, Maya rose at dawn, not for makeup tutorials or morning selfies like her classmates at Riverside Middle School, but to help Grandpa sweep the auto shop floor and refill the coffee urn. Their pay was meager, but enough to get a sack of rice and eggs each week. Grandpa Joe would hum old jazz tunes as they worked, and Maya often hummed along, though quietly, like a secret she was too shy to share. At school, Maya was nearly invisible. Her second-hand clothes didn't help, nor did her scuffed sneakers and faded backpack. Most kids saw her as the auto shop girl, and she learned early that staying quiet meant fewer cruel jokes. Still, every night after homework and dishes, she'd sit on the fire escape and sing softly into the night. Old soul ballads, lullabies, and hymns her mom once sang, the lyrics long ago memorized from a worn cassette Grandpa Joe kept in his toolbox. Before we continue Maya's powerful journey, if you believe that true talent can come from the most unexpected places, and that courage, not perfection, is what truly moves hearts, then please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep sharing stories that remind us how every quiet voice deserves to be heard. And now, let's return to Maya's story, where even greater moments are still unfolding. One rainy Thursday, the school intercom cracked with excitement. "Attention, students! Sign-ups for the annual Spring Talent Show are now open. All forms due by Friday." The announcement sparked a frenzy. Groups plotted dance routines. One boy boasted about his electric guitar solo. Maya, sitting alone at the cafeteria's edge, bit into her peanut butter sandwich and listened. That night, as thunder echoed outside, Maya found herself standing in front of the talent show form taped to the bulletin board. Her fingers trembled. The pen hovered. Should she? And then just before walking away, she scribbled 3 shaky words on the very last line. Maya Brooks, solo voice. From across the hallway, a snicker rose. "Wait, Maya, she's gonna sing. What is this, karaoke comedy night?" Laughter followed her down the hallway. She didn't turn around, just clutched her math textbook tighter and walked home under the drizzle, a quiet storm gathering in her chest. That night, as the rain tapped gently against the window panes and Grandpa Joe snored softly in the next room, Maya sat on the fire escape wrapped in her mom's old quilt. In her lap lay a notebook filled with song lyrics, smudged, handwritten, tear-stained in places. She stared at the words she'd copied down years ago from that cassette Grandpa kept locked away like a treasure. "I'll fly away." It wasn't a fancy song, not the kind of number that won school trophies, but it meant something. Her mother had sung it in church before Maya was born. Grandpa once said, "Your mama's voice could lift a man out of his sorrow." Maya never knew if she had that same magic, but something in her always fluttered when she sang. The next morning at school, whispers followed her like shadows. She really signed up. Watch her croak in front of everyone. A boy in homeroom made loud bird noises when she passed. Even some teachers seemed skeptical, exchanging looks when her name appeared on the performance list. Only one person didn't laugh. Mr. Kwan, the aging music teacher with tired eyes and a permanent coffee stain on his vest. "You signed up, Maya?" he asked gently when he saw her name. "Yes, sir," she whispered, barely meeting his gaze. He smiled, the kind that didn't pity but understood. "Bring your voice to rehearsal after school tomorrow, just you and me. Let's see what you've got." Maya nodded. Later that evening, she told Grandpa Joe. He didn't say much at first, just slowly reached under the sink and pulled out the cassette player, the one with the chipped buttons and squeaky rewind. He dusted it off and handed it to her. "She sang that song in a way that healed people," he said. "Maybe tonight, let it remind you who you are." The next afternoon, Maya stood alone in the echoing music room. Mr. Kwan sat at the piano, hands folded. "No music?" he asked. She shook her head. Just my voice. He nodded. And then she began. Some glad morning when this life is o'er. It started shaky, thin, like a thread unraveling. But then, something shifted. Her tone grew warmer, deeper, like a candle flickering into flame. Mr. Kwan didn't say a word when she finished. Just removed his glasses, wiped them slowly, and said, "Maya, where have you been hiding that voice?" Maya looked down, embarrassed. "It's just something I sing at night." He stood and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Well, sweetheart, it's time to bring that night voice into the light." The school buzzed with excitement as talent night drew closer. Posters decorated the hallways. Glitter pens scribbled names and acts in big, bold letters. Breakdance Bros, Ria's violin solo, the Beat Queens. Maya's name was there too, tiny, nearly hidden, at the very bottom of the sign-up sheet. Maya Brooks, solo voice. Students passed the list every day, whispering, pointing. Who even is she? Did she lose a bet? I heard she practices on the fire escape like some haunted musical ghost. In gym class, Maya overheard a group of girls rehearsing fake laughter. We should bring popcorn for her performance. Comedy gold. She said nothing. That afternoon, Maya sat quietly in Mr. Kwan's music room again. This time, he handed her a small microphone. Not to sing into, but just to get used to holding it. "Don't let them scare you into silence," he said, sitting at the piano bench. "You don't have to be loud to be heard." They practiced every day after school. Mr. Kwan helped her with posture, breath control, even how to pause just enough between verses to make an audience lean in. "You have something rare, Maya," he said one afternoon. "When you sing, it's like telling the truth in a world that's forgotten how." But outside that quiet room, doubt grew louder. On the day before the show, someone slipped a note into Maya's locker. The handwriting was jagged and mean. "Do us all a favor, don't show up." She read it, folded it slowly, and tucked it into her pocket without a word. That night, she sat on the fire escape again, clutching the microphone Mr. Kwan had lent her. The city sounds below were louder than usual. Sirens, laughter, life moving fast. She sang softly to the stars, not to impress them, but to calm the trembling in her chest. Grandpa Joe joined her with 2 mugs of cocoa. "You scared, baby girl?" he asked. She nodded. "What if they laugh?" He took a slow sip, eyes on the skyline. "Then let them laugh, but don't you dare stop singing. Not everyone knows what they're hearing the first time." She looked at him. "But someone will," he added, "and that someone might just change your life." Talent night arrived with the scent of hairspray, popcorn, and nervous energy. The school gym had been transformed. Colorful string lights lined the stage, folding chairs stretched out in uneven rows, and parents filled the back wall with cameras already in hand. A handmade banner above the stage read, "Riverside's Got Talent." Backstage, Maya sat alone on a wooden bench, her hands clenched tightly around her notebook. Her dress was plain, a simple light blue one borrowed from a neighbor down the hall. It wasn't sparkly or new, but it was clean, and Grandpa Joe had ironed every wrinkle with care. Her hair was tied back in a loose braid, and the only jewelry she wore was a thin chain with her mother's tiny silver cross. The acts flew by. Laughter echoed after the comedy skit. Cheers rose during the dance battles. A boy got a standing ovation after beatboxing with flashing lights. The crowd was rowdy and energized. Then the MC, a cheerful history teacher, grabbed the mic and called out, "Next up, we have Maya Brooks, singing solos without music." A small wave of confused murmurs passed through the crowd. Maya stepped onto the stage, and for a moment everything blurred. The lights were blinding. Her knees shook. She couldn't make out any faces, just vague outlines, shadows, movement. She could hear it, though. A cough, a giggle. Someone whispered loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Oh boy, here comes the big joke act." A few students in the front row pulled out their phones, some ready to record for laughs, others just curious. Maya swallowed hard. She thought of the note in her locker, of all the laughter she'd swallowed for years, of her mother's voice in that cassette. She looked down at her old shoes, then slowly raised her gaze, breathing in like Mr. Kwan taught her. And then she began. Some glad morning when this life is o'er. The first note was soft, almost too soft to hear. Some students smirked, nudged each other, but Maya didn't flinch. She closed her eyes and let the words flow. I'll fly away. Something shifted. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't bold. But it was pure. Fragile like porcelain, but steady. Her voice hovered in the air like a hush before a storm. Notes that trembled but never broke. Phones lowered. A teacher in the front row leaned forward, hands folded. Mr. Kwan, standing just beside the stage curtain, nodded to himself. And then the room grew still. No giggles, no whispers. Just Maya, standing under a single spotlight, giving every ounce of herself to a melody that had lived in the cracks of her life for years. When the last word fell, it landed like a feather, silent, gentle, and full of meaning. And then, nothing. A beat. 2, 3, then applause, slow at first, one clap, then another, then a wave of sound that shook the bleachers. And in the middle of that rising sea, Grandpa Joe stood. No camera, no sign, just a hand over his heart, and eyes full of everything Maya had ever hoped to be. Maya stepped off the stage on shaky legs. Her heart was still pounding, not from fear anymore, but from the feeling she couldn't name. Like something had cracked open inside her, and light was pouring through. Backstage was quiet. Nobody laughed now. A girl from the dance team looked up as Maya walked past. Hey, she said, not quite smiling, but softer than before. That was different. Good different. Maya nodded. Thanks, she whispered. Mr. Kwan met her near the exit door with a bottle of water. You did it, he said gently. No bells, no whistles. Just you. Maya took the bottle but couldn't speak. Her throat was tight with emotion. Out in the audience, the talent show rolled on. One final act, then closing remarks. But Maya didn't return to the gym. Instead, she slipped outside where the spring air was cool and clean, and the stars blinked like old friends. Grandpa Joe joined her a few minutes later, his smile quiet and steady. They heard you, baby girl, he said. You showed 'em. She looked up at him. Do you think Mom would have been proud? His voice caught slightly. She would have stood up first. The next morning, Maya's world changed just a little. In the cafeteria, people looked at her differently. Not as that poor girl or the joke act, but with curiosity. Respect, even. One of the popular boys nodded at her as she walked by. Another kid from her science class said, Hey, my mom cried during your song. She said it reminded her of her hometown. But the biggest surprise came during fifth period. The school principal entered the classroom and called out, Maya Brooks, you're needed in the office. A wave of confused whispers rose as Maya stood. The walk down the hallway felt longer than usual. When she entered the office, she saw Mr. Kwan standing beside a well-dressed woman with a large brown purse and a badge clipped to her blazer. She smiled warmly. Maya, she said, offering her hand. I'm Rachel Levin, director of the Harmony Youth Vocal Foundation. I was at the show last night. Maya blinked. You were? I came to see my niece perform, Rachel said. But it was your song that stopped me cold. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. We offer scholarships to young singers from underserved communities. Studio lessons, coaching, performance opportunities. We'd love to hear more from you. Maya's hands trembled as she took the folder. She turned to Mr. Kwan. Is this real? He smiled. You opened the door, Maya. Now walk through it. Outside, spring had arrived fully on Maple Street. But for Maya Brooks, it felt like something more. Not just a season, a beginning. Maya's first real music lesson didn't happen in a fancy studio or glossy rehearsal hall. It took place in the back room of a small community center on 3rd and Hudson, where folding chairs outnumbered microphones and the walls were covered with faded posters of past recitals. But to Maya, it felt like stepping into a new world. Ms. Rachel Levin, who had personally invited her, met her at the door with a warm hug and a clipboard. Welcome, Maya. This is your space now. This is where voices like yours grow. There were 3 other students in the room, 2 boys from opposite sides of the city, and a shy girl named Lena, who wore oversized glasses and carried sheet music like it was a diary. They were all different, but they all listened, really listened when Maya sang. The first few lessons focused on the basics, breath support, projection, pitch control. Maya soaked in every word, every diagram, every correction. She came early, stayed late, asked questions, and practiced at home in front of the cracked mirror beside Grandpa Joe's kitchen counter. Still, not everything came easy. She struggled with reading sheet music, and some of the more advanced techniques made her throat ache and her confidence wobble. One afternoon, frustrated after missing a note for the 5th time, Maya threw her notebook down and let out a quiet growl. Maybe I'm just not made for this. Rachel looked up from the piano and smiled gently. Do you know what makes a singer unforgettable, Maya? Maya shook her head. It's not range, it's not volume, it's truth. And you have that. The rest will build it together. At home that night, Maya found Grandpa Joe in the living room, polishing the old cassette player like it was gold. How was training? Tough, she admitted, but good tough. He nodded. You know, your mama used to say, the most beautiful flowers are the ones that grow through cracks in the sidewalk. Maya smiled. The next week, her voice coach announced that each student would perform at the spring showcase, a small event held in a local church basement, open to friends, family, and potential sponsors. Maya's heart dropped. Perform? Again? Rachel saw the fear on her face. You don't have to be perfect, Maya, she said. You just have to be honest. That night, Maya wrote the lyrics of You Are My Sunshine in her notebook, same way she had with I'll Fly Away. Not because it was fancy, but because it was real. And real was what she had always been. The basement of St. Martin's Church smelled faintly of old hymnals, lemon floor polish, and pipe smoke. Strings of soft white lights hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow on the makeshift stage built from plywood and prayer. Folding chairs were arranged in neat rows and a small audience trickled in, parents, neighbors, a few local reporters from the city paper, and a quiet man from a nonprofit arts foundation. Maya stood backstage, smoothing the sides of her dress. It was the same blue one she'd worn to the school talent show, but this time, Ms. Levin had added a silk ribbon to the waist. You don't need sparkle, she'd said. You just need to shine. The other students went before her. Lena sang a jazz number full of sweetness and swing. Marcus did a passionate R&B piece, hitting every high note like he was born in the spotlight. The room applauded loudly, and Maya's hands began to tremble. Her name was announced. She stepped out into the soft light. Her knees nearly gave way. But then she spotted Grandpa Joe in the second row, hat in hand, eyes glistening with pride. Her throat tightened. She closed her eyes, held the mic like a friend, and whispered a line just to herself. You make me happy when skies are gray. Then she began. No background track, no piano, just her voice, gentle, honest, and aching with every note. It was a lullaby and a love letter, a song that had rocked her to sleep on nights with no electricity, warmed her heart when there was no heat. Each word carried the weight of her life and the hope still blooming inside it. By the second verse, the room was still. Lena sat up straighter. The man from the non-profit lowered his notepad. Ms. Levin placed a hand over her heart. When Maya sang the last line, Please don't take my sunshine away, her voice didn't falter. It floated. A full second of silence followed. Then applause. Real applause. No one stood yet. No one needed to. The emotion was thick, sacred even. The audience knew they had witnessed something more than a performance. They had heard a truth. Afterward, a soft-spoken woman with silver earrings approached Maya and slipped a card into her hand. We run a youth program upstate, she said. We'd love to invite you for a summer residency, no cost. Maya blinked, stunned. Me? Yes, she said. Your voice, it's not just heard, it's felt. Maya turned to Ms. Levin. She nodded. I told you, Maya, real beats perfect. Back home that night, Maya stood on the fire escape again. But this time she didn't sing to the stars. She sang to herself, because for the first time in her life, she truly believed she was worth listening to. Summer at the upstate residency felt like stepping into a dream Maya didn't know she was allowed to have. The center was nestled between green hills and slow-moving rivers. Wildflowers lined the walkways. The air smelled of pine, and birdsong floated freely. Maya had her own room, small, but with a window that opened to a meadow. No traffic, no teasing kids, just space. Quiet. and a piano that sat like a secret in the corner of the practice hall. The first few days, she was nervous. The other students, some from performing arts schools, others from well-off families, talked in technical terms: vibrato, modulation, falsetto. They sight-read music in minutes and discussed famous composers like they were cousins. Maya felt like a cracked note in a polished song. One afternoon, during a group session, a girl in designer sneakers asked, "So, who's your vocal coach?" Maya hesitated. I didn't really have one, just Mr. Kwan. He teaches at my middle school, and my grandpa. He fixes cars." The girl blinked, then smiled faintly. "Well, you must be doing something right." Maya's chest loosened. Maybe she didn't have to pretend to belong here. Maybe she already did. Her favorite moments came in the evenings. After dinner, she'd sit in the open-air gazebo with her notebook. Sometimes she wrote lyrics. Other times, she simply listened to the wind. One night, a boy named Elias, who played acoustic guitar, sat beside her. "I heard your audition song," he said. "You made my little sister cry, in a good way." Maya laughed softly. "That's a first. You want to write something together?" he asked. So they did. A new song, about home and hope and that feeling of standing small in a big, big world, but singing anyway. As the final showcase approached, Maya was given the closing slot. The final act, the one people remembered. She chose their original song. No backup choir, no flashy lights, just her and Elias, her notebook-turned lyrics, and a voice that carried Maple Street, Grandpa Joe. Every fire escape sunset and every whispered lullaby. She didn't sing to impress. She sang to speak, to say, "I am here." And this time, when the last note lingered in the air, people didn't just clap, they wept. Some stood, others held hands. The applause wasn't wild. It was warm, deep, grateful. Maya stepped off that stage into something new. Not fame, not fortune, but faith. Faith in her voice, and the life it came from. The Monday after Maya returned home, the mailbox held more than usual. Grandpa Joe handed her a large white envelope with gold trim and a crimson wax seal. Her name was handwritten on the front. Maya Brooks, personal. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter on thick parchment paper, bearing the letterhead of the American Conservatory of Vocal Arts, one of the most respected youth programs in the country. A place Maya had once only seen in magazines or heard whispered about on the radio. She read the letter aloud, breathless. "Dear Miss Maya Brooks, we were honored to receive a private submission of your original performance from the Harmony Youth Vocal Showcase. Your voice carries the rare qualities we seek: honesty, emotion, and resonance beyond technique. We are pleased to offer you a full scholarship to our year-round development program in New York City, beginning this fall." Maya looked up at Grandpa Joe, stunned. I didn't even apply." He smiled and pointed to the return address. "Rachel Levin sent it in. Said you were too humble to believe you'd be chosen." Tears pooled in Maya's eyes. She clutched the letter to her chest. "It doesn't feel real." "It is," Grandpa Joe said. "It's real because you earned it, every note, every tear, every step." The following days moved like a dream. She packed carefully, her mother's cross necklace, her blue notebook, the cassette tape, and a photo of her and Grandpa standing beside the old auto shop. On her last night before leaving for New York, Maya stood once more on the fire escape. She sang softly, not to rehearse, not to prove anything, just to feel, to thank the sky, the street, the silence that once held her in. Her voice drifted down Maple Street one final time. The next morning, neighbors waved from porches. A few local reporters stopped by to wish her luck. Even the kids who once laughed now stood wide-eyed with awe as she climbed into the train bound for New York. She sat by the window holding Grandpa Joe's hand until the last stoplight faded. And when the train rolled forward, Maya pressed her forehead against the glass and whispered, "I'm not the joke anymore." No one replied, but in the quiet hum of the train she could almost hear her mother's lullaby rising in the distance. The American Conservatory of Vocal Arts was everything Maya had imagined, and everything she hadn't. Stone buildings with ivy-covered walls, practice rooms with grand pianos, students who sang in French, Italian, and German. Some had agents, others had toured with orchestras. Everyone had training, credentials. Maya had scars, a second-hand dress, and a voice no one saw coming. The first few weeks were hard. She got lost in the theory classes. Her dorm mate practiced opera at 6 a.m. sharp. Her accent drew curious glances, and when instructors mentioned breath placement, she still imagined Grandpa Joe placing his hand on his chest and saying, "Sing like you mean it." But Maya never gave up. She stayed after class, took notes late into the night, recorded her own voice on her phone and listened for every flaw. Her blue notebook filled with rewrites, reflections, and reminders. You belong here. You're not invisible anymore. One afternoon after vocal rehearsal, her teacher pulled her aside. "There's a donor gala next month," she said. "We want you to perform. It's an audition-only slot, but you already did your audition." When you sang "You Are My Sunshine," the staff stopped grading for a moment. Maya blinked. "You mean in front of everyone?" The teacher smiled. "They'll remember your voice, trust me." The night of the gala, Maya wore a navy dress donated by a conservatory sponsor. Simple, elegant, honest, like her. Her hair was pulled into a soft braid. Around her neck, the silver cross. On her lips, a quiet prayer. She stood in front of hundreds, donors, board members, musical legends, and when the MC introduced her, a soft murmur rippled through the crowd. "Isn't that the girl from Maple Street? The one who sang at the church?" She took the mic and began. This time it wasn't a school gym, or a basement, or a dusty fire escape. This was the world, and she sang not just for herself, but for every child told they weren't enough, for every voice laughed at, silenced, doubted. Her song rang out, full and clear. "You make me happy." The room stood still. Every breath, every ear, every heart listened. And when the last note fell, silence, then thunder, a standing ovation. Maya stood at the center of it all, no longer the poor girl from nowhere. She was Maya Brooks, the voice no one expected, but everyone would remember. The end. If this story touched you, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe for more heartfelt tales.